Okay, this chapter is on bonds and their valuation. So when we calculate bonds, we're going to be using our time value of money keys on our calculator. We're going to do it two ways. One way, we're going to compute the current selling price of a bond. So we'll put the information in and compute our present value. And then the other time, they're going to give us what it's currently selling for today, and then we'll go back and compute our IY, which is called our yield to maturity. So just to think about bonds a little bit, though, because students do struggle with bonds. Bonds are simply an IOU between an investing individual and a corporation. So they issue out debt in $1,000 increments to investors or into different bond portfolios that investors are going to invest in. So it's just another way for the corporation to borrow money, but not from a bank, from the investing community. So if I am going to loan a company $1,000, I expect to receive interest on that $1,000. So that's what we will calculate into our payment, is the interest payment. And then I'm going to expect to get my $1,000 back at the end. So that's my future value, or that's the company's future value. They owe me that $1,000 back. And then there's a rate of interest that those bonds pay. But because bonds go 10 years or 5 years, they're a longer term, at the time that they issue them, the company is issuing them at the current market rate of interest, but as we know, interest rates change depending on the economy and different things. So as those interest rates change and as market rates change, the price that investors are willing to pay for those bonds changes, because if market rate goes up and these bonds are fixed at paying a lower rate, nobody's going to want to invest in them. Nobody's going to want to invest $1,000 to make 5% if they could invest $1,000 and make 7 over here. So then what has to happen? The price has to go down on those 5% bonds. Or could go the other way. Maybe these bonds pay 7% and all the other bonds in the market pay 5%. So everyone's going to want these bonds, so then the price goes up. So that's the part that we're trying to figure out, and I think that's sometimes why students struggle, like why does that price change? It changes because the bonds pay fixed interest, but interest rates fluctuate in the market. So again, you'll have two computations. So our first one, we have a corporation that has $1,000 par value bonds, and they pay a 9% semi-annual coupon, which is an interest payment. They have 8 years to maturity, and the current market rate is 8.5%. So what is the bond's price? So we're computing the bond's price. All right, so we know if we're computing the bond's selling price, we're computing our present value. So that we know. We know time-wise, it tells us that these bonds are 8 years, but then you have to factor in that it pays interest semi-annually. So we're going to have to take that 8 and multiply it by 2. So we'd have 16 semi-annual periods. The IY, this is always our market rate. So it tells us that the market rate is 8.5%, but then that 2 is a year or an annual rate, so we need to divide that by 2. So then that's 4.25. Now the payment, or what the bonds pay, what their coupon payment is. So it tells us it's a 9% semi-annual coupon. So then I'm going to take my $1,000 par value times my 9% coupon rate or stated rate, and then because it's semi-annual, I'm going to divide it by 2 or multiply it by half. So now if I take $1,000 times 9%, that gives me $90 a year. Divide that by 2, it's $45 each 6 months. And then my future value is always $1,000. And if you think about this in terms of the investor. The investor has to give up money today, so that's a negative present value, to receive a payment of $45 every 6 months, so that's a positive, and then to receive their $1,000 back at the end, which is also positive. So make sure when you enter it into your calculator, your present value, when we compute it, it's going to be negative, but these two, the payment and the future value, are both positive cash flows. So 15 is our N, 4.25 is the IY, $45 payment, $1,000 future value, and then compute the present value. So then that gives me $1,027.32. So then if it's greater than the par value, it's selling at a premium. And this one is. So it's greater than the $1,000 of par value, it's selling at a premium. If it were less than that $1,000 par, it would be a discount. And then again, I want you to not just know how to compute it, but kind of understand the big picture. So you say, okay, well, why would it sell at a premium? The reason that this one sells at a premium is because they could invest in any other bond in the market and earn 8.5% a year. This particular bond is paying 9% a year. So it's paying you more. If you have $1,000 to invest, you're going to want this bond. So everyone's going to want that bond, so that's going to force the price up. So then the price is going to go up to $1,027.32, and that's why it's a premium. So the rate it's paying is higher than market, which makes it a premium. So again, you could have it at a premium, you could have it at a discount. Either way, you're going to go through these steps on your calculator and then compute the present value. All right, then your second problem, we're going to compute the yield to maturity. Okay, so then now say we have a corporation that has a bond that has 4 years left to maturity, interest is paid annually, there's a $1,000 par value, and they have a coupon rate of 9%, and then what if they're selling at $829 today? So again, we go back to our time value money keys. Our N is going to be the length of the bond, so these ones they say have 4 years left to maturity. The IY, in this case, this is what we're computing. So we're computing our yield to maturity, so that clues you in that we're looking for our IY. The present value is what they're selling for today. And these ones are at a discount, so they're selling at $829. So again, I'm going to make that negative, because if I were the investor, I'd be giving up $829 today to invest. I receive a payment, though. It pays a coupon rate of 9%. So $1,000 times 9% gives me a $90 interest payment that I would receive every year. And then the future value of a bond is always $1,000. That's how much the company owes you and is legally obligated to pay you back. So then now we'll put those into our calculator and figure out what that yield to maturity is. So 4 is our N, 829, make that negative by pushing the plus or minus button, push your PV button, $90 payment, $1,000 future value, and then compute the IY. So it's 14.99%. So that's how much you would be actually earning on those bonds, or you could look at it to say that's how much the market rate was at the time that you bought those bonds. So again, these ones are at a discount because they're less than our par value. And then you might, again, think about it bigger picture-wise to say, well, why are they at a discount? Because they're only paying 9%, and market rate at that time would be closer to 15%. So again, if you were an investor and you had $1,000 to invest, you would not want to invest in a bond that pays you 9% if you could find one that paid you 15%. So the price of that bond is going to have to go down. So even when we're doing this computation, you can still kind of use that logic to work through it. But so then our yield to maturity, if we paid $829, would be 15%. And again, let's take it one step to just get that bigger picture. If I pay $829 today, and in 4 years I get $1,000, I'm making $171 on that investment over that time. Again, till maturity, assuming I hold it to maturity. I'm going to make $171 between those two, plus I'm going to make $90 every year in interest. So I'm making my money two different ways. Part of it's going to come in the interest payment, and part of it comes in that appreciation of the bond itself. The fact that I paid $829 and I'm going to receive $1,000 when the investment is over. So you want to be able to do both of those computations, and then just kind of, again, understand that big picture of what a bond is and why it sells for a different price today.